I just wanted to talk today about the idea of social justice and educational psychology. So, social justice is a term that's used a lot, and sometimes people have different ideas about what it means. And social justice is a concept that's more and more being discussed within educational psychology discussions and educational psychology discourse. And the thinking is that psychology can actually support a social justice agenda. It can help achieve social justice goals. It's informed by social justice ethics. And so then the question is, well, so we have the thing is we have the Thrift and Sugarman article that says, hey, there are actually very different variations, definitions, practices of social justice. And some are contentious. Some might resonate with us more. Some are contentious. But they say, look, there are vastly different versions of what social justice is and how to achieve it. So then the question is, what version does psychology conform to or align with? Right? Does the application of psychology in teaching, does it align with all of them? Does it align with one of them? Right? Does it align with a few of them? Right? And that's what I really want you to think about. So look at those different definitions of social justice, and which ones does educational psychology align with? Now, in the Thrift and Sugarman article, right, they talk about social justice. Some people see social justice through a neoliberal lens, and what that means is the ways in which we achieve justice. When we talk about justice, we talk about typically it's about fairness. Um, well, actually, the definition is actually different across different conceptualizations, right? But when people typically think of justice, they're operating the assumption, look, that the world is unfair, it's unjust. There are some people who have opportunities, some people who don't, and social justice is intended to try to level the playing field so everyone can have access to opportunities. So, so from a neoliberal perspective, right? So people who endorse a neoliberal perspective might agree with this, agree with that assessment of the opportunity structure, right? They might say, look, yeah, we recognize that there are some people, right? There's income distribution. There's people who have maybe marginalized from political participation, democratic participation, right? They might recognize that, hey, you know what? There are some disparities and fairness, right? Then the question is, all right, how do we address that, right? And so a neoliberal vision for social justice is all about targeting the individual. So the way we mitigate inequality, the way we address unfairness is to change people in some way, right? We could change it. We can, right now it's very popular, very common to focus on non-cognitive skills and say that non-cognitive skills, if we cultivate these in people, we will help them to develop the cognitive capacity, dispositions, and skills to be able to compete for various economic positions on the socioeconomic hierarchy, right? And so that focus on non-cognitive skills is all about changing persons in some way, right? And sometimes we use the word character instead of non-cognitive skills, or character is entangled and tied into that. So the thinking is, if we change students' character, they will develop the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to compete for certain positions on the socioeconomic hierarchy. And by doing that well, and giving them access to those opportunities through the cultivation of those type of character traits, we can achieve, in this case, would be economic justice. Right? Because we think about social justice, some people emphasize economic justice, some people emphasize like political justice, like being able to participate meaningful in political life, democratic life. So in this case, so from a neoliberal perspective, social justice focuses on targeting individuals and individual character traits to try to address some of the issues, disparities with particular structures, right? And Sugarman, Thrift and Sugarman argue that actually that competes very much with early versions of social justice and also with some contemporary versions of social justice, right? So if you think about psychology, so what version does psychology align with? So psychology aligns really well with that neoliberal vision of justice, because psychology is all about trying to change persons in some way, right? so they can get access to certain opportunities. So that's how I want you to think. So, right, and that's how I want you to make the connection between social justice and educational psychology, the Thrift and Sugarman, and even and so and critical ed psychology. So critical ed psychology fits in this because critical ed psychology is guided by the commitment to illuminate the ways in which neoliberal ideology might operate through psychology. And so one of so a critical perspective would involve trying to articulate how psychology might unintentionally or might, without awareness, endorse a neoliberal ideology. Because sometimes we apply these psychological concepts and theories, assuming it's unequivocally beneficial for students, that it's really good. And so, we sometimes we'll apply psychological theories, thinking it's neutral value free and it's unequivocally beneficial. Right? The critical ed psych is about raising doubts and questions about those kinds of assumptions about the application of ed psychology.